I'm very excited to introduce our two panelists for tonight. So we have Samantha and Adil joining us. Samantha graduated from mechanical engineering in 2023 plus PEY, and Adil is a current student in engineering science, graduating in 2027 plus PEY. So we will go through to kind of have them give their introductions. Just for a little bit of housekeeping, so you kind of have an idea of what our format for tonight is going to look like. We will start with a few kind of intro questions just so that you have a chance to get to know our two panelists a little bit better. As you noted, the Q&A is open, so if you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to put them in there. A few things to note, we ask that you kind of keep your questions relevant to our topic for tonight, which is aerospace engineering. If you have any questions about, admission to the University of Toronto or kind of other parts of being a student or being an alumni, please feel free to reach out to us by email. We're more than happy to help you out with those, but just to kind of make sure that we can get through as many of the aerospace related questions as possible for tonight. You'll notice in the Q&A that the upvote function has been turned on. So if there's any questions that you're kind of reading through and thinking, oh, that's a really great question, I'm really excited to get the answer to that, please use that function just so that I know kind of what to prioritize. And with that, we will get started. Okay, so the first question that I have here for our panelists is introduce yourself. So we'll start with Samantha and then go over to Adil. If you could introduce yourself, what was your program at U of T? Maybe any kind of minors or certificates you did, any extracurriculars were really excited about or are really excited about, and then a little bit of kind of intro about what your current position is, and kind of what your role within aerospace engineering looks like. So Samantha, if you want to get started.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha Butt. I'm a Mech 223 plus PY plus Track 1. So I initially started out as a first year student in the Track 1 undeclared engineering program and picked mechanical engineering as my major. My current job is I work as a junior designer at Safran Landing Systems Toronto. Safran Landing Systems is the global leader in aircraft landing and braking systems. So I work specifically on the design of landing gear systems for all kinds of aircraft, ranging from commercial aircraft to military fighter jets to private jets like the Bombardier Global 7500. When I was a student at the University of Toronto, I was involved in a number of different extracurricular activities, mostly ranging from leadership opportunities. So I was a teaching assistant for a variety of first-year courses, including calculus and APS 100, the orientation engineering course. I worked at Chestnut Residence as well as a residence don, and Adil was actually my student on my floor, which was very nice a couple years ago. And I was also involved as a head orientation leader for Frosh Week, the high school director, NSOC, a number of activities. So I really tried to maximize and make the most of my experience there. So I'll pass it on to Adil.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Adil. I'm a current student at U of T. I'm engineering science 27 plus PEY. I'm currently on my PEY term. And I plan to do aerospace engineering within the Eng Sci major. On campus, I'm involved with like a bunch of different things. So I do our aerospace team, which is the University of Toronto Aerospace Team, UTAD. It's pretty famous because it sort of splits into multiple divisions. I also do the wind turbine design team, UTUN. So it's just different. It's super fun. And I'm also involved myself with a bunch of networking clubs. So Coffee to Capital, it's a small club, but super fun. And currently, I'm doing my PEY at de Havilland Aircraft of Canada, where I work in the MX team, which is maintenance engineering. And I work on the data side as a maintenance engineering analyst. And de Havilland de Havilland's been around for almost 100 years. I think probably in 2028, it's going to be 100 years. We make short utility STOL, VTOL, not VTOL, but short takeoff and landing utility aircraft. So I get to work on a bunch of cool airplanes and sort of gain exposure to the aerospace industry during my PUI. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Very important question in the Q&A that I completely forgot to address. What does PEY stand for? So PEY stands for Professional Experience Year. So sorry, should have mentioned that at the beginning. Professional Experience Year, so it's our co-op program within the faculty. So students do generally their first 3 years as a full-time student. They do a 1-year placement with one company, and then they come back and finish up their 4th year of school. So 5 years in total with that 1-year work placement. So thank you very much for the question. Can you walk us through a little bit about kind of what the day-to-day in your current role looks like? What are some of the responsibilities you have? And yeah, generally kind of what does a day in your life at your company look like?
Yeah, sure. So I work in the engineering department, specifically in the advanced projects in North America team at Safran. It's a lot of words, but the idea is that this is a team at Safran Landing Systems that is responsible for attracting new business opportunities into the company. So we work at the very beginning stages of the landing gear and the aircraft development, and we'll work with customers like de Havilland, Bombardier, Boeing, Airbus, the major airframing companies, and we'll converse back and forth with them to create an early concept landing gear design to suit an aircraft that maybe they might see flying in like 2035, something like that. So my role specifically is they hired me to be a junior designer, so a mechanical designer. And on the day to day, I do a number of tasks. So I work on computer aided design, and it's called a software called CATIA. And I design the landing gear components. Landing gear is very complicated. It consists of a number of different kinds of mechanical components. I produce engineering drawings for manufacturing, so I'll use the same software. We'll dimension all the parts, size them, apply materials, things like that. We're starting to do some testing and prototyping for components in different kinds of research and technology projects. So this would look like maybe an unconventional design of a landing gear component. It needs to be tested. So we'll design it, we'll run analysis on it, and then we'll get it manufactured, and then we'll run the test. We file patent applications. I'm working on one right now. And I actually work a lot with our current professional experience year students from U of T, and we also have a few from TMU. And I guide them with their tasks and their responsibilities. And something that's important is I'm also always trying to read and educate myself more about the industry and what's going on, and ways to improve my knowledge is very important. So that's what the day-to-day looks like at Safran Landing Systems.
Yep, I can go next. So I work in maintenance engineering at de Havilland. So de Havilland, for context, is an aircraft maker. We sort of come together with all the vendors like Safran, Collins, all the different vendors to sort of put an airplane together. I work in maintenance engineering. I'm the only intern in my team, so I'm like really grateful to get a lot of different sort of experiences. So my work is mostly 3 ways. The first one is I work MDA, which is maintenance data analytics. That essentially comprises of working directly with operators in terms of airlines and governments, like clients of ours who buy our airplanes, and sort of optimizing their fleet, look at how their fleet is performing live, and then helping them understand their problems and looking for solutions to make operations easier. So that's the data analytic parts of it, and that comprises of coding, SQL, Python, and a bunch of different things. So it's super interesting. The second one is aircraft economics. So that more or less comes into the cost of running an aircraft. So, aircraft are super expensive to buy. They're also expensive to run. So, just a good model and study behind it is something which I get to look at. And lastly, I also work a bit with maintenance programs. So, buying an aircraft is sort of like buying a fridge. You buy the appliance itself, and then there's a sort of an insurance and sort of maintenance package that comes with it. So you buy an aircraft, and there's certain sets of rules which you sort of follow to keep that aircraft up and running for 30, 40, 50 years. So I get a bit of exposure to that as well. But yeah, for the most part, my work is MDA, which is the data analytics side of aerospace. So yeah.
I'm gonna think about you saying that buying an aircraft is like buying a fridge for my entire life. I think that was so funny. Okay, let's see here. Some really fantastic questions coming in. Just as a reminder to folks, we're really not able to kind of answer some of those admissions questions tonight just because we're really kind of trying to focus on, having these really great students and alum for talking about aerospace. But any questions at all, please email us. I'll put our email in the chat as well. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how you went about finding your, Samantha, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you also do your PEY with Saffron as well? Perfect. Okay. Do you want to maybe chat a little bit about how you kind of went about finding your PEY placements? And then Samantha, if you want to talk a little bit about maybe kind of what that transition to a full-time position looked like as well.
Yeah, sure. So I found my PY placement at Safran through the Engineering Career Center. So that's our career center at U of T Engineering. They have a large portal where they upload all of the jobs. So Safran was actually one of the first companies to post jobs on the portal. As an excited third year student, I was on that portal and I saw the Safran jobs all available and I applied to every single one of them because it was a company I was really, really interested in. And they got back to me actually around this time, like mid-November is reading week. And I did the interview and they liked me, so they offered me the position and I, of course, accepted it. So it was through the school's co-op program. In terms of getting a full-time offer after I graduated, so there was like a bit of transition into that. I actually did so when you're a fourth year student, a requirement of U of T engineering and engineering accreditation in general is to do a capstone project. And this is a year-long design project where you work with a company in the industry. So I actually created my own project with Safran Landing Systems. So I kept that connection with the senior vice president at our company. We did a really good job with the project. They were very impressed, and I expressed my interest to join the company again. And I said, I really like to come back. Could you offer me a position? What's available? They had some big projects going on at that time. So because I kept a good working relationship, that transition to go back was quite seamless. So that's kind of how I made my entrance into the aerospace industry, was through our PEY program.
I think I can answer to sort of the first part of it because I haven't really graduated yet. So, my journey to getting a co-op and starting a co-op is pretty similar to Samantha's. The Engineering Career Center, I was probably there like every event which was happening, and there's a lot of events which happen which like leading up to like recruitment season. So with the ECC, I was there for events, and Samantha has been like a huge mentor for me since first year. So like she knows that I've been like pretty consistent with trying to consistently like build on our aerospace related profile. And then I happened to get an interview with de Havilland, and when I was looking for aerospace, or rather even at this point in time, I was like super interested in the sort of next generation of airplanes which are being manufactured in Canada. So there's the Bombardier Global 8000, which did its first test flight this year, and that was like super interesting to me because that's sort of the next generation of airplanes. Then the de Havilland DHC 515 aerial fighter. That's also due for its first flight in 2027. So the sort of up and coming programs were like super interesting to me, and this is what companies are currently recruiting for and were recruiting for when I was applying. So So yeah, just happened to work out with Javelin, and Samantha was like super helpful with like interview prep and stuff like that. So so yeah, that was my journey to starting the co-op.
Amazing. Thank you. And Adele, maybe you can be that what Samantha was for you for someone else. I think that's so lovely.
Yeah.
I have one kind of specific question for each of you now. We'll start with Samantha. Um, because engineering science aerospace is kind of the only named aerospace option we have here at UT, can you talk a little bit about kind of like what your pathway, like do you feel like your mechanical kind of program really prepared you to work in aerospace? Is there anything that you feel maybe gave you an advantage or maybe you felt like was missing? It's a question we get a lot, kind of what are different ways to approach working in the aerospace engineering industry? And so I would love to kind of hear your perspective as like, yeah, being part of a program that didn't have like aerospace in the name and kind of what that looked like for you.
Yeah, honestly, that's an excellent question. So, specifically at Safran Landing Systems, so landing gear in a nutshell is an aerospace structure. It is a large piece of metal, basically. So, aerospace structures is very heavily tailored towards mechanical engineering. Actually, all the concepts that I learned in school are very highly applicable to the job that I'm doing right now. Um, we're looking at mechanical design. We have a mechanical design course in second year. We're looking at the loads or the forces, like from a physics perspective, that the landing gear can handle. And that's our solid mechanics courses that we do. Manufacturing as well. Aerospace is a huge manufacturing business, basically. So it kind of depends on, what field or what niche in aerospace you're going into. And I think that landing gear, airframe design, anything that has to do with the structure side of aerospace is very, very closely tied to mechanical engineering. So, what I learned in school was very tied well into the job that I do now. You mentioned about, do I think anything was kind of missing? Did I feel like something gave me an advantage? I think the one thing I would recommend to students that I didn't do was that in mechanical engineering, we had like stream courses, which is where you could tailor like courses in your upper years to your specific interest. And I didn't choose the solid mechanics stream. That's the one that focuses on structures. I chose a different stream. But that one is very closely tied to aerospace. So if you're interested in that, I'd highly recommend that that's what you push yourself towards. It was just too early, like when I had to make that decision, that I didn't choose that pathway. But I look back and I wish that was something I did do. And also just like figuring out maybe, like you said, like yeah, like tailoring the courses maybe to like specifically what industry you want to work in is really, really useful. And you get more flexibility doing that as you get into the later years for sure. Did I touch on everything? Was there anything else? Good.
No,
Okay.
that was great. Thank you. And I think it's so interesting that you mentioned like kind of, in hindsight, you might have picked a different path, but I think you still ended up like in this really incredible area, right? Like there's so something to be said about like, maybe making decisions differently, you would have done something else, but maybe it wouldn't have landed in the same place. So
Yeah. So it all works out in the end, so it's okay.
exactly. And then my question for you, um, engineering science kind of is talked about as a kind of more maybe theory or research focused kind of way of learning engineering. How do you feel like that's maybe applied to your current work with PEY? Similar idea, do you feel like it kind of has advantaged or disadvantaged you at all in the way that you kind of work through your day-to-day job right now?
Yeah. So not just Eng Sci Aero, but I feel like even the first 2 years of engineering science, which are sort of the 2 years in which you sort of learn a lot of different things, which builds up to when you major. I feel like Eng Sci is not like specifically for research at all. I mean, most of my friends are going into the industry at the moment. Some are going into like eng physics, which is then going to lead to research. So, I mean, I see a lot of mix in my class when it comes to this stuff. I feel like engineering science, the curriculum is such that it's a mix of I would say applied sciences and pure sciences. So naturally I get to like when I do an applied math course, I also gain a bit of exposure to pure math. And I feel like all of this in my first 2 years really build up, sort of sort of built up to me getting a very systems level understanding of things. So naturally, learning to break things down and then thinking about them top to bottom, bottom to top. So, it really taught me like a way of thinking and a way of approaching systems as such. And, aircraft are highly complex systems. So I feel like my engineering science background really like helps me approach these complex systems from a very basic level and sort of build it up from there. So yeah, but yeah, and naturally NSI sort of gives you a very diverse exposure, and then you come together in the end to finally concentrate in something. But yeah, even at work, I think of things a certain way. And in my team, I have another NSI alum from like I think 2012 or 2011, and she thinks of it the same way, that it really teaches you a way of thinking. And I don't think it's just NSI. I feel like UFT Eng, the curriculum which it go like a person goes through, it really, more than the math and physics, it really shows you and makes you sort of drills into you a way of thinking, which is what you use when you go into the industry.
You really lined me up perfectly for the next question. We didn't even rehearse this, which is why did you choose U of T and why did you choose kind of the particular stream of engineering that you studied? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I guess a little bit of background. I didn't actually really know too much about the engineering profession before I started at U of T as a high school student. I don't have anyone in my family that's an engineer, so I didn't have like a role model to educate myself about what the profession entails. But I knew a few things about what engineers did, and when I was a grade 12 student, I had some really influential people in my life at that time who really encouraged me that this was a good career pathway for me. Why I chose U of T specifically was a number of reasons. It has a great reputation, it has good connection to the industry. Those were, of course, factors in my decision, but really what drove me towards it was um, when I was a student, they had a number of recruitment events, and one of them was called GLEE, Girls Leadership Engineering Experience. So I went to that and I saw that there was so many other bright and talented and students who were excited about engineering who were all female. And they were talking about how they had 40% women at U of T that year, and that was their highest number yet. And they wanted to really encourage women into this career pathway. And I felt like I was in this place where I belonged. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I really want to come here. And seeing that firsthand, like really, really inspired me to go to the University of Toronto. And I think that like if you are, an incoming student, I encourage you to really go to those events and see what they're like, and you'll get a really good perspective. Why I chose mechanical engineering specifically was, I was a track one student. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but mech really drew me in because I had a number of combination of different things that you could go into. It focuses a lot on the theory side, the pure math, the physics side behind things, but you also get to do some of the hands-on work like the CAD, building, different kinds of things, and that really drew me into it. And I kind of liked that, I could go into aerospace or biomedical engineering or energy and, take time to figure out which of those fields I wanted to niche myself in. I think that with mechanical engineering, like the world is your oyster. There's many, many opportunities by which you could pursue, and that really interested me as a student.
Yeah, I think for me, so I was an international student coming in, so naturally I was, looking at schools across North America, and what really attracted me in Canada, and especially at UFT, was the PEY program, which is the 16-month co-op term. Because if you're in a co-op term, then you graduate with 16 months of experience at minimum. If you have a first year internship, then that, or a second year internship, then that can go up to 24 months of like working experience. And I mean, mathematically, that means that you're doing a 4-year degree, but you also graduate with 2 years worth of experience. And I feel like that really adds up. to, once you graduate, and then then I think you would be positioned really well. This is the way I thought about it. And yeah, the 16-month term was what sort of really attracted me. And aerospace in general was what I was always like passionate about growing up. I wanted to study aerospace engineering, and I sort of, in my research, when I was in high school, it was Eng Sci, which was the way to study aerospace engineering. And I sort of looked up courses and sort of done my research on how the curriculum looks. And then I think I put Eng Sci and then a few other options as my second option. And then, yeah, I think I got into Eng Sci, and then, yeah, so that was about it. So, like, to sum it up, it was my interest in aerospace, as well as I was super interested in the 16-month term, which is part of UFTN.
Thank you. There's so many great questions here. We're trying to get through as many as we can. Question here. Samantha mentioned Glee, which says on our website the last time we offered it was 2023. We've actually offered it every year since then. I will figure out where that's not up to date on the website. But we do offer Glee every year. We are planning it to offer for 2026. It's a really wonderful event for female identifying and non-binary students who have been admitted to engineering. I'm going to also take this second to really quickly plug that next Wednesday evening, we are hosting a panel for women in engineering. So for, again, female and non-binary students who are interested in engineering. So please come out for that as well. You will likely receive an email from that very soon. So that's my very quick plug for our Women in Engineering events. A question here that I'm very intrigued to hear your answers to. I've heard that aerospace engineering can be a very competitive field. What are your kind of thoughts on that? And what would you maybe say kind of in support or in response to that kind of idea?
So I would say yes. I would, if I'm being honest, I would agree with that. The reason why I would say it's competitive is because specifically in Ontario, I would say we only have a certain number of aerospace companies. So we have Safran Landing Systems, Bombardier, de Havilland, MDA Space, Pratt& Whitney Canada, Collins. So I've named about like more than 5, but less than 10 companies. So the range of companies for which you could work for is significantly less than maybe if you were to do software engineering. Tons of companies need software development. And with that being said, it is a very popular field, so it becomes increasingly more competitive when you're applying for the PEY program. So, kind of, I guess, my advice to that to kind of help you stand out is, get involved in things like Adil was talking about that are related to the aerospace industry. And that's how you, as a student, can also discover if that's the right fit for you. So I would say, yes, it is competitive.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree fully. I think coming to UFT Eng, like studying is like one part of it. Of course, like, it gets a lot during like exam season and stuff like that, but that's just one part of it. I feel like a big part of university life is also like experimenting and trying out different things. This was a lot of like these were like conversations which I remember having with Samantha when I was in my first year, trying out different clubs, trying out UTAT, the aerospace team, trying out UT Win. And then I also had sort of a sort of a diversion from this. I went into a bit of like economics sort of based clubs, and then sort of, I think I did my fair share of like experimentation with different things. And then I finally settled on aerospace, in which I built up my profile over the 2 years. And I think, yeah, definitely that helped me sort of break into the industry. And I had a first year internship at an aerospace vendor as well, so I think that helped me build up for my PEY. But yeah, I think like what Samantha said, aerospace tends to be a bit of a niche And I feel like it's like widening up a bit now. Like aerospace firms will hire like software engineers, AI engineers and stuff like that. So the landscape's changing, but definitely I think they look for like a way of thinking, way of approaching these complex systems. You know, landing gears are super complex, engines are complex, and yeah, I think it's competitive, but I think it's super fun. So.
Thank you. Again, we've really got something going here because you really lined me up again for my next question, which was going to be, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the like aerospace clubs you're involved with at U of T and kind of what you're doing, like what that looks like, what kind of projects you're working on, things like that.
That's a better question for Adil. I'm no longer a student. I could just name a few that I could think of. Um, and like what I've seen other students do in the past. So like Utah, like Adil mentioned, there's a number of avenues by which you could join that club. So they have a rocketry division, satellite, UAS, and then aerospace policy. RSX stands for Robotics for Space Exploration. So they build a Mars rover robot and they go to a competition and compete it. And there's also, different ways you can get involved in terms of just doing like undergrad research. Like we have UTIUS, you can go do research there. I've seen a number of students do that as well. So that's a little bit different, but it's still, valued, I would say. So I'll let Adil answer that question.
Yeah, that's correct. There's UTAD, which I did. So I was in the unmanned aerial systems, UAS. I sort of, had an interest in these things from high school. So I had experience with a different sort of set of like robotics competitions, or First Robotics, which is I think pretty famous now. It's like worldwide. I did RWDC, which was the Real World Design Challenge. So I sort of always had an interest in these things, and then when I came to U of T, I realized that okay, well, I mean, everything's already here, and it's just time. It's about time that I get involved in these things and try out different things. So yeah, UDAD is pretty interesting. There's UD Wind, which is wind turbine design. So I mean, I'm originally from a place where there are no wind turbines, so I was like super interested in what it takes to um make a wind turbine. And I mean, interestingly, the shape of the sort of flange of wind turbine is very similar to like an airfoil design on an aircraft. So the wing of aircraft, they're sort of similar physics, which sort of goes into it. There's a few things which happen there, but yeah, it's like similar stuff. So yeah, so there's UD Wind, which was like interesting to me. There's also UTFR, which is the Formula racing team. So yeah, I didn't ever really do UTFR, but a lot of my friends do get involved with like making their car, like Samantha said, the robotics team. So yeah, there's a lot of different things, and you can try out different things. I know a lot of people from high school participate in like MUNs and stuff. There's like MUN clubs which are not just for it's not the clubs aren't just for like engineers. You can go join a policy club. Yeah, there's so much to do.
Thank you. I think we've loosely touched a little bit on this next question, but I'm again kind of really curious to hear your thoughts. Samantha, you talked kind of about, on the Ontario scale, what kind of job prospects for aerospace look like, and to no problem at all if this is not um, something that's kind of on your radars right now, but like generally, what have you maybe noted kind of beyond Ontario, maybe US or international, that what kind of aerospace opportunities maybe look like, yeah, on a more global scale, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so of course, there's opportunities for aerospace in the US, like Lockheed Martin, Gulfstream Aerospace. We can go over to Europe and we have Airbus, which is huge over there. The United States is a bit challenging because for aerospace, they require you to be an American citizen for the majority of the positions that they offer. And even some programs that we do at Software and Landing Systems that are military programs require specific citizenships. So that is a thing to note. And that is like a big restriction that the industry has. Europe, I'm not too sure. Actually, Safran's headquarters is in France. Like we're actually a French company. And it's huge over there in Europe. I don't know if they have a preference for like a European citizenship. That I've actually never looked into. But I do know that American, it is quite difficult. A lot of times what people will do is they'll go and work in the automotive industry because that doesn't require specific citizenships, and then they'll try to get an American citizenship or a PR, and then they'll try to go into aerospace. So that's kind of like the pathway to get opportunity elsewhere.
Yeah, I agree. So I sort of see a similar thing at work as well. So de Havilland's Canadian, but like historically, de Havilland started in the UK. So the UK division is what sort of transformed into and sort of fused into what is BAE Systems today in the UK. So they're much more on the defense part of it, and defense, of course, is highly restricted. Even de Havilland Aircraft Canada Defense, which works towards airborne early warning and control aircraft like AWACS and stuff. It's restricted towards Canadian citizens, and yeah, so that part is decently restrictive, but commercial aviation is I think it's open for. I mean, I'm not a Canadian citizen. I'm not an American citizen, but I think I found my way through these things. Of course, some places you're completely restricted, but I feel like yeah, I definitely feel like there's opportunities for everybody. I also feel like it's a really important and sort of super interesting time for someone to start aerospace. There's so many interesting things which are happening all over the world. I mean, we have the Airbus to A220 program in I think Quebec, somewhere in Quebec, Mirabel, sorry. Yeah, in Mirabel. I think Bombardier is making the Global 8000 here in Toronto. That's what I've heard. De Havilland's making the 515 and the Twin Otter 300G in Calgary. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Embraer's getting their next aircraft in from Brazil. So um, the Boeing 777X is gonna come out soon. So yeah, I mean, honestly, super interesting time. And even as like someone who's like just passionate about aerospace, it's nice to read about these things, and yeah, it's great.
Thank you. There's a couple questions here that are talking a little bit kind of more about some of the other extracurriculars. So I know Adil talked more about kind of aerospace focus, but I know Samantha, you were really involved in a lot of really incredible activities that maybe don't feel as like directly related to aerospace, but I'm sure a lot of those skills really help you. Do you maybe want to chat a little bit about some of the activities you were involved in, and yeah, why they were, meaningful to you, maybe some of the skills you picked up that you feel like are helpful in your job now?
Yeah, for sure. So, as I mentioned, I was involved in like a number of different leadership activities at U of T. And they all kind of led me to my PEY placement. And then even some of them I was involved in like when I was an intern or like towards the end of my degree. And I think that there were a few things to note about like transferable skills, maybe in terms of interpersonal skills. So, I guess like one example that I could give is that, I worked at Chestnut Residence, which is our engineering residence as a residence don. So I managed all the floor of students. So I did this twice when I was a third year student and a fourth year student. And I remember when I did my PEY interview, the HR recruiter asked me, she said, I see that you're working at this engineering residence and you're responsible for managing 52 students. How is it possible that you could manage 52 students on one single floor? And I said to her, like, that there was a number of things that factored into it, like time management, empathy, being able to understand and connect with people, communication, and effectively communicating with all of my students and organizing events, budgets. And these are all things that you still need to do on a daily basis, and especially in an interview as well. Like, how can you communicate with the interviewer and connect with them so then they feel that you are the right fit for that kind of job? So although maybe I wasn't doing aerospace related tasks, those interpersonal skills really helped, and actually was recognized by the person that was recruiting me. And she was very curious, like, how is it possible you could do that? Um, so, you know, you can learn from every different kind of experience. So I had a lot of different experiences. Like, same thing, I was a head orientation leader for our frosh week. So I was same thing, I had a big frosh group of 50 students. How do I manage all those people, basically? How do I communicate to them? So those kinds of experiences also helped me on my journey, and they were fun, and they were all things that I enjoyed to do. So I look back and I'm very happy with all those things I got involved in.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, I'm just trying to keep kind of going through our questions here. Okay, so there's a couple questions. I think we've again loosely touched on this. A couple questions about like the difference between kind of like engineering science versus the core 8 programs, and the way that they're kind of like approached. So like some of the questions here are, you know, I've heard that Eng Sci is more academically rigorous than the core 8. Do you feel like engineering science, because it's a very specific program, doesn't maybe have the same level of like international recognition that like just, you know, straight mechanical engineering might have? Um, so I guess essentially to put this into a question format, do you maybe want to talk a little bit about, you know, your specific pathway that each of you took, Samantha in the core 8 and Adil in engineering science, what you feel like maybe the benefits of that pathway are, and maybe kind of myth busting a little bit of, you know, this like that engineering science and the core 8 are, you know, completely different, and like one is there's like a right answer that one is better than the other, when I think, you know, the consensus is really there's going to be a right option for each person. There's no right answer overall. So hopefully that kind of makes sense as a question. Why do you feel like, you know, the program you're in has been a good match for you? And what do you feel like are some of the benefits of, you know, specifically the core 8 or specifically engineering science?
Adil, do you want to go first this time?
Oh, sure. Okay, so that's an interesting question because I get asked that like so much from like even my juniors from back in high school and stuff like that. So see, the basics of engineering are the same, like regardless of what you're specializing in, and not just at UFD. I mean, at Waterloo or like anywhere in the world you study engineering, there's, you know, certain universal standards which you need to meet to be an engineer. So yeah, the basics are the same. I feel like the program, like Eng Sci, differs a little bit from, I would say, the core 8, in a way that like they really try to sort of give you a complete view of not just engineering but also like sciences. So you know, like I said earlier, so like for example in first year we do calc 1, calc 2. We also do math 185, which is a very pure math linear algebra course. And I think the core 8s, they also do a linear algebra course, but I do not think that that's a pure math course. That tends to be a little more applied from what I've heard from my friends. So you know, naturally the difference is that in our exams, you know, on pure math courses, you tend to just go and prove the question itself. So it's different, you know, it's a very different exposure. I come from a curriculum in which I never even knew what pure math was. So I was like super interested in trying to see what it is to, you know, be someone thinking from a pure math perspective. That's why a lot of Eng Sci's also like research, because, you know, the similar sort of set of skills which you learn from pure sciences and then going over to research, so pure physics and stuff like that. So I feel like that was like good exposure I got in my first 2 years. Also, Eng Sci first 2 years are like super diverse. So, you know, on one and we're doing like a course on like bridge building. We make a bridge in the end of the course, and then we like test it with like trains and sort of see who can like make the strongest bridge. But at the same time, we're doing like a course in biomedical engineering. So me personally, I wasn't the biggest fan of like biology. I was never great at it. I was never even good at it, but you know, it was an interesting course. I definitely learned a lot of like real life things. So yeah, it's just a mix of a lot of things. They give you, you know, they keep throwing like challenges to you. And yeah, I think the first 2 years are meant to sort of make you explore different things, sort of push you a little academically. But I do feel like the basics of engineering are the same, regardless of what you study. So over to Sam.
Yeah, I think Adele gave a great response. So, kind of the way that I see it is whether you choose to study Eng Sci or mechanical engineering, it's more of a personal preference, maybe about which program could be the best fit for you as an individual. And when you're going into your co-ops and you're looking for to apply to a PEY internship, your academics and your coursework serves as the baseline requirement, basically. So everybody in your program is taking the same courses. Like everybody in Eng Sci takes those courses, everyone in mechanical engineering takes those courses. What we're looking for, I guess I would say for students, is what are you doing outside the classroom that makes you stand out? And what are you doing to niche yourself into this particular field and show that you're really passionate and interested? Um, Mechanical engineering like is different from Eng Sci. The core 8 and Eng Sci are different in the fact that I think Eng Sci's curriculum, like Adil was mentioning, goes more into the theoretical side of things. With the core 8 program, they try to tie it into different kinds of applications. Like I know mechanical engineering, they just came up with a new electric vehicle course. They're trying to make things more practical. But I will admit that both programs at U of T are more heavily focused on theory anyways. If you want more hands-on experience, you kind of turn to there's opportunity for that in the projects and courses, but it's more of the student design teams where you get the hands-on experience to the full extent. So it doesn't, they're both excellent pathways to get into the industry. And like I said, we've had, I was an intern a couple years ago at my company. We've had many interns after me, some of which have come from MEC, some of which have come from Eng Sci, and we look at both of those things equally. It doesn't really matter.
Perfect. Thank you. A couple of variations of this question that we received, and I think is always a really great question to answer. How did you find the balance as a student with kind of your academics and your extracurriculars and all the other aspects of your life? What are maybe some tips that you found either through trial and error or anything like that to kind of really help you find that balance between your academic side and your non-academic side?
Yeah, I will be honest, it was really hard to, manage my time and be able to get involved in all these things. I was busy all the time for, those 5 years. But within that busyness, I found that I was pursuing things that I was very passionate about. So, like, I was pursuing these activities outside the classroom that I really wanted to get involved in, things that I was excited about, like, and I used those things as, social activities and ways to meet people. And that's how I felt like I was super fulfilled going through the program. And I think it's about like learning about what's most important to you and prioritizing those kinds of activities for sure. Um, but yeah, it does get very, very busy. I will say so. There were times where I had to, pick and choose between certain things, but I think that U of T is great in the sense that there really are so many clubs and opportunities and things to join. Like there's something for everybody. Like I'm sure if you could think of the most random club, like if you wanted to go canoeing, like we have the outdoors club. Like there's so many different things that you can do. Like you'll find something. Like don't worry.
Okay, here's a question for you both. How many clubs do you think there are at the University of Toronto St. George campus?
Oh, probably like 2,000. That would be my guess. Maybe that's a high amount, but I don't know.
So we have 700, over 700 clubs and teams
Yeah, I was way too
in
high.
St. George. Yes, all three across all three campuses, there are over 1,000 clubs and teams, 700 at St. George, and 100 of those are specifically within engineering. So truly, what Samantha's saying is correct. No matter what you're interested in, it is almost definitely here.
And if it's not, you can start it. You can come up with your own.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely a lot to do. And I mean, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, my first 2 years were like a big challenge for me. Like it was an academic challenge, which I did not expect. Like I sort of came from a pretty rigorous high school curriculum. So I thought that I was prepared decently, and but like it still took me, a bit of a um it was still a pretty decent uphill climb for me in first year. Second year was harder for me. So yeah, NSI sort of, really pushed me, which I honestly like. I really like. I like being like academically um sort of being pushed in that manner. So yeah, that's honestly one of the things which you'll see, at least in like my class and like my classmates, like people really like love to learn. um like I said, you're doing a BME course, you're doing like a bridge course, so it's so much like there's a lot of width to it. So yeah, it was fun. It was a challenge, definitely. I mean, I still have 2 more years, so I'm sure it's gonna be, it's it is a good challenge, the degree in itself. But yeah, there's so much to do. I feel like once you come in, you settle in a little bit. I moved away from home, so that was like a big thing for me because it was like my first time living so far away from home, so far away from my parents. And yeah, yeah, first year was definitely a huge learning curve. Second year more on the academic side because first year I was involved in a lot of things. So I ended up, meeting good people, meeting like-minded people. And yeah, I think everybody sort of at the end of the day finds their people at UFT, and especially because, it's such a tight-knit community. So yeah, so that, and then yeah, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to study as well. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I love that. Those are both great answers. I think a question we get a lot is, like is engineering easy? And I think the long and the short of it is no. Right? I don't think people are coming here because it's easy. I think you're coming here because you want that challenge and to challenge yourself and to better yourself in that way. We are getting very close to the end of our time. We've thrown you guys some big questions, so hopefully the last two that we're going to finish up with are going to be a little bit more relaxed. Question here that I really love. What do you think is the most interesting or compelling aspect of aerospace engineering?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that aerospace is quite fascinating and it's very rewarding because it kind of sits like at the intersection of a couple different things. So like we have cutting edge technology, we're constantly innovating on the technology we have, complex problem solving, we're solving like how is an aircraft going to launch off of an aircraft carrier and like in Top Gun and then like land like with an arrestor hook on a cable. Like that's so complicated. Like I can't even get into it. And there's also real world impact as well. And I think that's rewarding, right? Like, like you may be taking these kinds of aircrafts to go on a trip somewhere and you're super excited and you're like, I made these things, I designed part of this aircraft that people are using every day. So I think that's why it's just such a cool field to be a part of, honestly.
Yeah, my answer is honestly much like it's very like surface level in the sense that so this happened a few weeks back. So De Havilland makes the Dash 8s, which is like a regional sort of turboprop aircraft, and there were a couple of planes which were going from WestJet here in Toronto to Qantas in Australia. So my team was able to like go and see these airplanes as they were like leaving for Australia. So I was there, I was on the tarmac and I got to see these airplanes, and I was like super happy. Like I was fully like cheesing. My manager was like, he was looking at me like, wow, the interns having fun. So that's it for me. Like I'm happy, seeing all these airplanes. They're huge, and like yeah, that's about it. Like I'm happy around airplanes. Like it was super fun. So yeah, but like Sam said, these are like super nice, complex systems. They're very sort of agile machines, and yeah, it's so interesting, the ability for like a machine to fly. Who thought about that?
I'm gonna think about you both next time I'm on a plane and there's turbulence. Be like, I trust them. I know that they know what they're doing, so I trust them completely. We're gonna end off with one last question here. Um, Many of the folks who are joining us tonight are in grade 12, grade 11, potentially 9 and 10. What advice would you give to someone who's kind of in that, stage, who's thinking about, university and different industries and programs and kind of making all these really big decisions? What piece of advice would you maybe give to someone who is, yeah, at that stage in life?
Yeah, so when I think back to when I was a high school student, I think like, maybe this is a little bit obvious, but my advice would be to, go to the universities, go to the campuses if you can, if you're a domestic student for sure, and visit them and ask yourself the question, like, do I see myself studying at this university and doing this kind of program? Like I mentioned Glee, but they have lots of other events at U of T and other institutions where you can talk to students and you can get their opinions on the programs and what their experience was. And I think that you should, like I said, ask yourself those questions. And, Katie said earlier about, people, is engineering hard, right? And yeah, it is difficult, right? Like, but when I was a grade 12 student, I asked myself the question, do I think I can do this challenge? And my answer was yes. So I think like a bit of self-reflection, as you get a little bit older into grade 12, is what I would advise you to do. And, explore different areas as you are in that stage.
Yeah. Yeah, from my side as well, I think three things. The first one is what Sam sort of touched upon, which is U of T has like events all around the world. Like I remember going to a U of T sort of social event right before I came to university. So I got to meet a lot of people. Actually, the sort of if I remember correctly, the alumnus who is invited to that event when I was in high school, he was the one who, I sort of reached out to for my first year internship. So yeah, you never know how things pan out. So yeah, definitely, talk to people in school, talk to people who have graduated from U of T, and to sort of understand before you choose, where you want to study, what you want to study. I think the second thing I would say is and we get a lot of this with like Eng Sci specifically. I don't know, like there's just a lot of like, things going around about Eng Sci being like super rigorous, very research oriented, whatever. So I will say like like I would put a lot of emphasis on like, do not psych yourself out listening to this. I sort of played into it a little bit. And then I like quickly realized that, okay, like, I'm a good student. I need to believe in myself to, do well in university. So I sort of came back to it. But yeah, do not psych yourself out. Like if you get selected to study here, then there's people whose like full-time job is to decide the next set of students who will come here. So like that's what they do. So if they're picking you, then I'm sure that you are good enough to come here, study, and graduate. And it's a great institution. So yeah, I'm sure that they're doing their job right. And then I think the last thing I would say would be, this was told to me by, so I was struggling in like first year, first semester. And then Professor Stangeby, who unfortunately passed away 2 weeks back, he taught us Calc 1. And then, so he was telling me about like Eng Sci. He was like an Eng Sci from 1967, I think. And he told me that things get hard, but so do you. So like your mind consistently sort of develops on that. So yeah, I think honestly that's been with me like ever since. So yeah, I think those three things would are something I would tell someone coming into you.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think a really lovely note to end off on. Thank you both so much for your time. I learned so much, and I hope our audience did as well. Thank you both so much for your time. Thank you to our audience for joining us tonight. I know we have a number of questions in the Q&A that we didn't have time to get through. Thank you for asking really incredible questions. It makes this time so much more exciting and really rewarding to know that hopefully the information we're able to provide you with is helpful. Any questions that we weren't able to get through, please feel free to email us. I put our email address in the chat, just engineering@utoronto.ca. It is also the email you got this information or invitation and confirmation from. Any questions at all, please feel free to reach out.